Hello, I'm Michael Pearson. This is The Human Condition. Back by popular demand is Dr. Bill Janeshak. Our topic today is motivation, personal development, and the brain. As you recall, so many people have commented and want to see Dr. Bill back again. We have him from Yorba Linda, California at Family Chiropractic Clinic, an award-winning chiropractor and best-selling author. He is here with us to talk about a number of things, mostly regarding the tricks and tips about personal development with regard to brain networks and brain function, tips and hacks that have to do with how you talk to yourself and how you think about things. And we will be discussing that neurology of how the brain functions and what it can do to sneak up on you and mess you up when it comes to personal development. Please welcome with me, Dr. Bill Janeshak.
Hey, Mike, thanks. Pleasure to be back. I love having conversations with you.
Well, thank you for being here. It's great to see you in 2024.
I know. It's been a little while, but it's a great year, and I'm looking forward to it. And I'm looking forward to the topic, especially because it's brand new in 2024. And I think I don't know how you've been doing, but I've had a lot of patients coming in. They got their resolution set, and they're all revving and going, and we're running into some problems because, they've had also years of stress for various reasons. And I think this topic is going to be kind of awesome. And it's one of my favorite things to talk about is because I have a lot of friends and a lot of influence in the personal development kind of world. But I think there's a lot of stuff that the people are getting wrong, or they could do better. I guess I should say it that way. You're a neuro guy, and like I said, every time I have a problem over there, I call you up. He says, how's this working? What's this going on? Are you working with a lot of people in personal development things? When you're doing your QEEGs, what are you finding in most people, like when they're not quite achieving what they want to achieve? I mean, what kind of see?
Absolutely. There's because I'm focused on the discipline of neurology, I end up treating sick people that are pretty profoundly sick and have some pretty bad complaints much more often than I do personal development and personal growth and that kind of peak performance stuff, which is your bailiwick. And so the NLP is fascinating to me, that world of yours, and the substrate of how those circuits work. So yes, I would say that I do some of it. And when I do QEEGs on people that are usually of means and they want to increase their performance, and there isn't a lot wrong with them, they tend to have some findings that you would find that are not terribly serious for them, but they're a lot like a professional athlete. They've got little tiny subtle things. And if you make a small difference in something subtle in a high performance pro athlete or a high performance business person, the small difference can make a huge difference in their performance and their income and their, a lot of them have many people whose income is dependent on them. So if they have 600 employees, for example, those 600 employees will benefit from them doing a good job and making the company's value go up and all that stuff. So yes, what we see is little things like tweaks in blood work. We see little tweaks in the brain where the brain waves are not so optimal. We might find little subtle things that are not as perfect as they could be. And the person may not notice that with performance because they're so high performing. And then when you do examine their brain, you see these little tweaks, these little features that is a little off. And then we can look at correcting those, and I could go into that.
Well, that's the interesting thing, because that kind of goes to exactly what I talk a lot with my patients, because I get into the nuance. I see sick people too, but because, I'm in the clinic all the time, we also, it's chiropractic. So we have wellness visits and people that are trying to be proactive. I wish it was a bigger portion of the clinic. And that's always the goal, to get people from a sick model of thinking to a proactive and an optimization level of thinking. But what I always tell them, I say, little hinges swing big doors. And people, it's amazing, because we'll get people in and I'll see them. I say, well, your neck is out. There's pressure over here. It's going to cause tightness, and your movement's not quite right. And they're all like, oh, no, I'm good. I feel fine. I feel fine. And you wait on them a little while, and they come back and they're really jacked up because they're going down the exact road that I told them. So they're coming in with big symptoms, and they want a big diagnosis, and they want a big treatment plan. And I, watch your diet, get your minerals in, start to move, start to sleep, get some sunshine. Yeah. But and again, they want an MRI, and they want a CAT scan, and they want a QEEG, and I tell us little hinges swing big doors. And the topic that we're talking about here is some of those people, they want to skip. They come in kind of jacked up, and they want to skip the taking care of the basics and go into the optimization. Oh yeah, I got that. They think because they're committed to something finally, sometimes, that now they can just play in this other realm. I said, no, we've got to fix you up first, and we've got to get this, because I work a lot with in the personal development space and with entrepreneurs and authors and speakers, and they come in, and the challenge with them is that it's sort of like it's their superpower and their nemesis at the same time. They have great ideas, and they just want to get this out, and they can't stop thinking about it, and they're going, but their mind is writing checks that their body can't cash. And so they wake up with all the vigor, and they wake up motivated and caffeinated and everything else up like that, and you come in with that natural curve of that drop of cortisol around 3 o'clock, and they can't think clearly, and they're the brain fog, and they're tired. And the ones that want to keep on going, and because they're still thinking of stuff, then they're self-medicating with sugar and caffeine and energy drinks and all this stuff, not really realizing that they're decreasing their body's ability to function at a high level. And they go and they go and they go, and they don't get the results, and then they see a shiny object, and then they rinse and repeat, and they kind of go back. And that's kind of where we're at. And this is why I was happy to talk about this subject with you, is that with personal development, it always starts with the brain.
Gosh, it's so funny you say that, because that's exactly what we see on the QEEG. Is you said something like their superpower is their nemesis, and their nemesis is their superpower. We see that so much more with the super performers than we do with the average Joe, which is that the person might come in and they're super high achiever, and will find a brainwave signature that may be crackling. Let's talk about a high achiever that's got a really fast brainwave. So they've got these beta spindles, or these fast beta activity in their brain, and that might be the thing that gives them that edge. That might be the thing that makes them able to be so fast. Maybe like they're a NASCAR driver, or there's some kind of a quarterback, and they have to make snap decisions. And we don't want to take that. We don't want to blunt that edge, but we do want to take away just a tiny bit of it, because they're overdoing it. So as you said, their strength is their problem, and their problem is their strength. And if we don't just tune it carefully, they could be without the motivation or without that skill. And if we don't do something about it, they can overdo it and be just too vigilant and too just too much.
Well, and we'll see that in ADHD and in those type of characteristics. It's, with ADHD, and I'm a victim, or no, it's self-proclaimed, but we get so excited and so focused, and we'll see a patient, so okay, we got to do this, got to take care of the nutrition, we got to do that, and we can go in deep, and that's a superpower. And somebody that can control that, but also it's squirrel, and you can run off track real simple if you don't have that discipline. And I think that's the realization that you have to be. In personal development, you actually, if you take word for word, is you have to develop. That means that you have to get better, and you have to progress. And that doesn't just mean like go rah rah and run around the corner and say, I think I can, and yay me. It's not a rah rah section. True personal development is developing yourself personally. Do hard things, do the things that are challenges. Expect that. Don't sit over there and expect, every room that you go into for the rest of your life to be 72 degrees sunny with, roses, unicorns, and sunshine all the time. That the things that we do are going to be hard, but those are exactly the same exciting things that we have, because hard things make us better. I was talking to a friend of mine and they said, isn't it wonderful once you understand that in order to get what you want, you have to, it's in direct correlation with the willingness to endure the things that you don't like. And so like, if you work out and you go to the gym and you're lifting weights, you feel weak as you're actually getting stronger. If in your finances, if you're saving money, you feel poorer as you're actually getting richer. And it goes on and on. If you look at everything that you want, you have to be able to endure what seems like the opposite to get that. And we don't do that. And it is all in controlling the brain. And so my whole thing when I'm working with optimization of people, it's okay, how's your brain working and how is your mind working? Because a lot of people still think they're the same thing, and they're not the same thing. The mind, I've heard it described as the brain in action. It's the action of the brain, because we can't hold a mind in our hand. We can dissect a brain, we can hold a brain, and it's the physical entity. The mind is different. Thoughts, love, desires, creativity. We have the neural networks in here to make it work. So it works in our meat suit, but it's different. And I still, after all these years of studying and doing everything that I can, I still haven't figured out a really good definition of what the mind does and is. I mean, what do you think?
No, that's fascinating. I think the whole idea that we have to restrain ourselves is really good. You and I know excellent clinicians that are super enthusiastic and super skilled, but they lack some restraint, or they lack a little bit of impulse control. And you know what that is and who that is and those kinds of things. And so we see these brilliant minds, these brilliant people who just need a little more restraint. And I must say that, even in martial arts training, when I was a little boy, I think some of the best training I ever got was the restraint of, what not to do with your pocket knife, or what not to do with a fire, or what not to do in speech, and what not to do with your fists. And so we were always taught as little boys restraint. We were always taught to hide your light under a bushel, if you will, so that you could not be so and so out there, so very American as American culture can be. So that little bit of an Asian twist was what I think helped me. And I hear that in you. You're talking about the Stoic philosophy, I think. It sounds like Stoicism, and I really love it.
Yeah, if you look at the ancient philosophies and stuff, it's funny how we have to constantly relearn. If you look at Stoicism, even Christianity and Buddhism, and so people argue about who's better and who's right. I don't know, 90% of the stuff is the same. It's just taught in a different way, but it's actually putting that stuff into action. We just did, you take religions and do that, but you also look at, I'm a big fan of the hero's journey. And the hero's journey it's called the monomyth, and it was developed by a man named Joseph Campbell. For the listeners that don't know or haven't heard of it, well, don't know the name, but you have heard of it. Joseph Campbell, he was a mythologist, and he studied all the cultures all around the world through all the time frames, and kind of dissected everybody's transformational journey. And in your transformational journey, there's always a place that you start out with. They call that ordinary world. You have this, it's either something inside of you. And I think we've all had that, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, a president of the United States, or a teacher, or, there's something that's always for some reason has resonated with you that you're going, or it's something that you're thrust upon. It was like, mom and dad were suddenly gone, so now I have to take care of my siblings. That's a hero's journey. But as you go on through that, you find a mentor somewhere, you go into this totally different world that you're kind of grown up in, and then you have to figure out what was my old way of thinking and how do I have to think in the new way. And then they have what's called the big ordeal, which is a monumental task or something that happens that really changes the thing. And then you learn a lesson and you take that lesson and you're changed forever. And then you come back to the ordinary world where you came from to teach others. And I say that to say this is that I know that everybody's heard of it because it's the same story that Abraham has gone through, Jesus went through, Buddha went through, Rocky. It's the Dorothy from the Wizard of Oz, Luke Skywalker. If you look at all these stories, they have the same theme, and that's exactly also why they're classics. Is that because they resonate with everybody? There's an emotional pull to it, and so I say all that. So what's that have to do with personal development in the brain? It's each part of those journeys. The brain has to develop. And you have to learn new things and new habits, and you have to stick to these things, and it eventually changes, and that changes who you are and what you do. And we work a lot with that in NLP, or neuro linguistics program. We're working on the subconscious mind. And the interesting thing with when you're shooting for a goal, and this is as of this recording, it's January 2024, and we just missed Quitter's Day. Last Friday was Quitter's Day, and that's the time when most people will quit their New Year's resolution because it got hard, and they think it's their willpower is not working, but it's really they just didn't develop their brain enough. They didn't learn a new behavior. And I'm curious to ask you is what portion of the brain has to flip over when we're creating a new habit? Like when we're making those neuronal connections, is there a tipping point or something that when something switches over, when it becomes rather a conscious act to when it becomes unconscious?
Yeah, I think this is really the essence of the basal ganglia. This is the structure that is wired in us as the subcortical, or the deeper brain structures that are there to help us with whatever we want. So like when we want to do something or learn a new skill, we kind of turn it over to our basal ganglia. And when our basal ganglia figures it out, those deeper structures take over the job, and we can forget about it again. Like brushing your teeth or shaving your face or shaving your legs. You get to a point where you can just do it, and you can do something else while you're doing that because your basal ganglia figured out the sequence, and it can just work through how to do that. And you can drive a car while you're brushing your teeth. I don't recommend it, but you can do that. Whereas you're probably not going to do other complex things while you're driving a car, but you'll see people doing these kinds of things. So I think that it gets to one more point that I think is even more interesting. Some of you may not know this, but Dr. Bill and I have been working on deploying some neurofeedback and neurostimulation at his clinic in Yorba Linda. And one of the things that he's creating here is the ability to shift set, to be able to be flexible. So he's going to be offering these devices that a person can rent or take home or come to the office and use that allow a person to change the networks. And these networks are really important in human performance. And so there are three networks really quickly. The emotional network, or the salience network, which means how important and how attached am I to something that I see or hear about. The cognitive network, which is how I think through something. And then the default mode network, which is how do I just idle? How do I rest? How do I go back to an idle and rest between tasks? Because if you can't do that, you can't recover and you can't learn new skills. So Bill, you'll be in, and this, of course, but the audience needs to hear this. Your clinic, the Family Chiropractic Clinic in Yorba Linda, will be able to offer these kinds of things and these kinds of technologies where you can train to make one part of your brain more active, another part of your brain less active as you work through these structures that are the key switchers. They're the key switchers between which mode, which neural network are you using for your task and your performance. And so that's kind of the key of how the brain serves the mind.
Yeah, and that's exactly the thing that we want to do. And I was so glad to partner with you on that, because for everybody listening, is like Mike's unbelievable resource to not just me, but a lot of clinicians, because it was just so well read and he explains it so well. Because we have a problem with our lives. Like Thoreau is one of my favorite quotes. The mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. They die with a song in his heart. We both see a lot of people that are really sick, and it's chronic stuff. They've been going on so they're overweight, and they have digestive issues, and their neck hurts and their back hurts, and they can't think straight. They have insomnia. They don't think. Well, that's the meat suit stuff. That's the symptoms that you go to a clinician and you try to fix those things. But that's not the whole person. The whole person is the dream that's inside that meat suit that can't get out. When we talked before about the entrepreneurs, but there's that 42-year-old mother there that cries in the shower because she can't lose that extra 5 pounds, and she's been trying to, and it's eroded her self-esteem. It makes her feel, like not a good mother. And she puts on a good face and she laughs this, and she's on social media, and she goes, well, and she's trying to take these pictures of the life that she wants. How social media is, never compare yourselves to people's Instagram, because we're comparing our normal lives to their highlight reel. And most of the time their highlight reels rented as well. But I see these patients in there because, when we're doing a history, I'm asking the questions, not only where does it hurt and where does it get from the clinicians, but what's that stop you from doing? What do you want? Why are you here in my office? Oh, I want this to go away. I said, okay, well, you just told me what you don't want. I said, what are we really looking for? Well, I want to feel young again. Or when I was in college, I felt like this, and I felt sexy and alive and confident. And so that's the important thing that people need to get results in, because there's lots of ways to get a headache. You can anesthetize somebody and their headache goes away for a while, but it's how your body is functioning that's creating these problems. But that same person that's, again, crying in the shower, and they hate their clothes, and especially, the females. I'm not getting sexist. Don't write Mike any notes. Dr. Bill Janeshak said this, but because of the emotional thing, because there's so much pressure put on them by society, they've got to do everything. They've got to be a wife and be a mom and take care of the house and hold down a job and try to have a social life. And they're running ragged. And but I say all that stuff, and that's why they set goals. And in my love, not so much love relationship with personal development, is they're coming with people with real problems. Some are physical and some are mental, emotional. And when they come in and they hear a speaker that's painting this wonderful picture of, I want that life, and they sign them up for a program or something else like this, just says, you can do it, make a vision board and put it out, and the universe will bring everything everybody wants that stuff. But how do you work for that? But how do you have to change the brain in order to change the mind, and vice versa? They have to work together. And those networks that you're talking about, and what we're doing, helping the brain switch so that you can make it, because willpower never works. Willpower will always fail, because it's like not trying to think about a pink rabbit. I mean, you have, in order to not think about it, you have to think about it. So if you're thinking about, don't eat donuts, don't eat donuts, don't eat donuts, I'm not going to eat donuts, it's still at the top of your mind. And when we're talking about the mind, as long as it's in there, because the subconscious does not hear negatives. If you say, I don't want to be fat, all your subconscious says, oh, fat. And so you're push it until one day you run out of that mental resiliency that's keeping you down. And then you go, well, screw that. And then Dunkin' Donuts is having a sale and I'm taking advantage. I'll start Monday. And Monday turns into next week and next week, and then they end up where they were. So exactly what you said, by using what we know with science and clinicians, is changing these networks, you're changing the brains, you're changing the trajectory of somebody's, or all the massive men's and women's lives of quiet desperation.
Gosh, this is amazing. You're those of you that haven't seen Bill at work, it's really interesting to hear how he listens to a person's self-talk and then helps them modify it, because that's really important. And it's not pop psychology. It's really science, and it's really important. And so when you marry those things together, the self-talk, the self-discussion, the choice of language, the choice of words, with the tinkering with the brainwaves, along with the tinkering of the food and the diet and the detoxification and the sugar tolerance and the sleep, when you put all those together, people can really change. And it's so much easier than you think if you put those things together without drugs and without, some kind of indoctrination. You don't have to go to boot camp and have your brain completely washed by the military to change it. You can change it with these methods. And I think this approach really does work, because it won't work with just me tweaking the brainwaves, and it won't work with just you tweaking how they talk to themselves. It has to look at the whole person. And if they're pounding themselves with insulin resistant causing foods, their brain will never have enough calmness to adopt a new habit and slow down enough to change, for example.
No, exactly. And one of the things that we like to do is, if we're going to truly make a difference, we have to use all those things together. And the biggest thing that I'm seeing is our lack of movement, because the movement is the thing that's feeding the brain. It's giving its energy. And, in personal development, they say, emotions is created by motion. That puts you in a state. But it's also the same thing that makes our neural networks, because we're firing all our proprioceptives off over there, getting everything that's helping that. And then if we can take the brainwave and help move those around, we're kind of guiding our processes where they should be. And then we're looking at a good diet filled with great fats and good proteins and little sugars, no sugars. And it's amazing when people do that, because they think everything has to be such a big job to do, and it's relatively quick. And I'm really glad to put that away. But your help has been immense in helping us get there, because I'll say, well, where are we going with this neural network? And then I call you up and you set me straight, and I go do it, and I'm like, yeah, that works. I appreciate that, Mike. That was a good job.
Well, thanks. You've nailed a phenomenon here that is formally called the top down and bottom up theories. And I think in psychiatry and psychology today, we get really stuck on the top down theory, which says that, your frontal lobes determine everything. And if you can just fix those frontal lobes, they'll send descending, top down control, much like the military or politics, and they'll just inflict their will on everything else below, and everything will be fine if you can just do that. And so you go to counseling and you try to shoehorn things out of your frontal lobe and shoehorn things into your frontal lobe, and you take drugs to try to make your brain work a certain way, and you do all this therapy. But I think your description of the bottom up idea, which is the idea that your muscle sensors and your joint sensors, which are called mechanoreceptors or proprioceptors, they sense the environment. They make voltage, and that voltage goes up your spinal cord and hits your brainstem and hits your cerebellum and hits your thalamus and lights up your brain like a charging factor. It's like lightning in reverse. Instead of coming down from above, it's like lightning that comes up from the bottom and charges you from the ground. And that bottom up theory is so important in changing the brain by getting people moving. And it's not just moving. It isn't just getting around and moving your body. It's figuring out where the movements of your body might be messed up and having a chiropractor fix your feet or fix your knees or fix your hips or fix your spine so that you can have better signal, better quality signal go up that antenna to your brain and get those lobes working.
Yeah, and that's exactly how I explain it to the people that I'm working with. Is every joint, muscle, tendon, ligament, fascia, disc, meniscus, and everything gives off the signals, and the brain wants to know what's going on. So if the less that all those move, if you imagine all of them as everyone's whispering. If just one person is whispering, you don't hear it. A couple people whisper, maybe you hear a murmur like that. But if you get a whole community whispering at the same time and saying the same thing, it's going to get your attention. And that's the brain's attention. And that does. So we've got to make sure that everything is in track and everything is aligned up how it's supposed to be. And, we as chiropractors, we want to just dial in on the vertebral subluxation and just doing that, and it's a wonderful part, and I love that. But that's all a lot of people want to talk about, and nutritionists only want to talk about what you can stick in your pie hole, and and the colonic therapy wants to see what's coming out of your pie hole, and the psychologist just wants to talk about what you're thinking. It's like, and if you're going to have a truly holistic model, you have to have a team of people in place that are looking at you from all different angles. And, I do different things because I didn't have other people that would look at people at that same angle. And now I've gotten a bigger network where they understand what I'm doing. And it's so funny. I get so many doctors that they finally go, oh my God, that's great. I want to. The doctors are excited, and so who's ever listening to this, I want you to understand that the doctors, they went in this. I'm talking about medical doctors. I'm talking about osteopaths, chiropractors, acupuncture, everybody else. They went into that profession because they're very interested. I mean, they, in some cases, were obsessed with whatever that is. That's why you put in the time and the money and the effort and the learning curve to do that. In the system, especially in the medical field, because they're a lot of them are so confined by, you can only use this diagnosis, you can only use this drug, and this is the way to heal, and this is like that they've lost their spirit because they really want to make an impact. Nobody wants to just go to a job and punch a clock and do everything. So when I talk about this stuff, they get so excited, it's almost bringing their spirit back. And what's it like when you're working with someone and they listen to you and they go, Mike, that was wonderful. You get excited.
That was such a description. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Bill Janeshak, the brain whisperer. I absolutely love that explanation. So no, yeah, the people need to understand that this NLP is a science. It's a degree, it's a science, it's a discipline, it's a whole structure of how people talk to themselves and how they hear things and how they voice things. And I think that structure is incredibly important. And I think that you have integrated it in such a way with the nutrition, with the defeating of your own childhood epilepsy, with the ability of you to help in physical performance and athletic performance and in the gym. And as you help people with both diseases, chronic diseases and pain, as well as the personal development and the ability to be better in their business, better at sales, better at better entrepreneurship. And that's the reputation that you've got. The combination of it, the integration of it is really what gets me so excited, is putting all the pieces together. That's real mastery to me. And I just love that.
Yeah. I mean, it's awesome. And just so the audience that haven't heard before, neuro-linguistic program is it's the study of modeling. Actually, it's every thought that we have is a picture that we make in our mind. And based on how you create that picture, I mean, you could, if you think of a rose, you might think of a rose and like one long stem rose, or it might be a yellow rose, it might be a dozen roses, and you might think about it right here, or it might kind of picture over here. Most people are not used to thinking about their thoughts because you go, oh, it's just there. But if you stop and think about that rose, you're going to see it somewhere. And some people it's going to be in color, and some people are going to be black and white. Some people it's going to be small, and it's going to be big. Some people are going to have like it blowing in the wind, and it might be a drawing, or it might have music in the background. So all those things, just like the whisper of the joint moving and the muscle moving and the thing, it also creates a thought. So just like the same way that you can screw up a movement pattern by having a knee go out, and that causes a glitch in you, the brain picks that up. But if you're missing a component of your thought, then that's going to kind of screw up what you feel. And then you're going to associate this, whatever you're feeling, that picture with a feeling, and that feeling and that picture and that thing. And so, if you ever smelt something and you thought about your second grade teacher or your grandma or your mom, that's exactly what's going on. So you can have the same thing that if you had a trauma, and if your high school girlfriend broke your heart, on Halloween, and every time you taste a Reese's peanut butter cup, it makes you sad for some reason. You may not put those two together, but all of a sudden now you go, oh, well, I'm allergic to Reese's or peanut butter cup. And where did that come from? And to get rid of those, spoiler alert, because you're in control of it, if you change the way, if you physically look at that thought and you change the way that you make it in your mind, and you can change the placement, whatever, and it's different on everybody, but you can figure it out, you're going to change that feeling. That's how, if I tell somebody you can't be on Reese's peanut butter cups, and they go, but I love them. And it's interesting. I don't know if you've seen this in your clinic, Mike, but when people have a food aversion, it's often something that they usually have like an autoimmune or immune reaction to. And I explain it's like a cutter, because if you have, say, Reese's peanut butter cup, if you take that in and it creates a subconscious cortisol effect, which breaks down into cortisone, which is a highly anesthetizing your whole body. If you feel bad, you take this, and you're not really making the connection that it's a powerful anti-inflammatory. And then I explained, I said, it's sort of like cutters. You ever see people that cut themselves?
Yeah.
So if you ask somebody, say, why do that? They say, that makes me feel better. And you go like, what are you, freaking nuts? You're going to cut yourself and you feel better? But it's when you cut yourself, there's that powerful immune response that releases it. And it's not, this is making them feel better, but they're anesthetizing the brain, which is anesthetizing the mind, so they feel better. So it's the same thing, that you can make these connections in the brain. So if we have somebody get off, I say, you need to get off gluten. And they go, but I love my bread. It's my baby. It's my comfort food. I just love it. And they're so emotionally connected to this thing.
Yeah.
I said, well, if you're ready, I'll have them bring in their favorite bread. And by the time, it doesn't take very long in most cases, but I'll have them love bread, to like go bread, like, yeah, it's okay. I like bread, to like, I'll pass this time, to I hate bread. And if you could go over and hate something, there's no more willpower. You're not going like, you never had that conversation, said, well, I could have a nibble of the Reese's peanut butter cup, no, you're just like, no, that's disgusting.
Yeah.
Then you go on with your life.
Wow. Gosh. No, this is amazing. I think this message is so important for people to see. I think the theme underneath all of this is just so countercultural. It's just so, everybody's taught that you've got to accept this stuff. Once you get it, it's permanent. You can't get rid of it. It's bigger than you. You got to take a drug. You got to go to a big treatment center. You got to have Elon Musk put a chip in your brain to change it. It's just, you just can't, you're not big enough to change it. You can't possibly do anything about these things. And once they've started in your brain, if it's a mental illness, oh boy, you are done. There's nothing you can do to change it. Almost like a pathology. Once something happens to your body, you can't reverse it. And so this idea that we can reverse things is my theme, and I'm really into it. And I just love hearing you talk about the idea that we can reverse these apparently behemoth problems that we can actually reverse, and we can take them apart piece by piece. And that's what you're teaching us, is we can take them apart piece by piece and just take them apart brick by brick and just go, all right, I've disassembled the problem and it's gone now. Doesn't happen overnight.
And you can plug and play, and the technologies are out there. And anytime you're working with the mind, it technically is a pseudoscience, because you can't run a double-blind peer-reviewed study on anything, because you're only an N of one.
Yeah.
But, and I know hundreds of NLP practitioners and clinical hypnosis people and stuff like that, and they have files full of their office of success things, because people were taking care of their minds, and they're able to do that. The most motivational thing that I do in my office when I'm educating people is telling them that you're in control. The mind, not the brain, but the mind's job is to make meaning of things.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it'll default to whatever. Because in the case, if I almost drowned when I was 4, way back over there, and I'm 50 plus today, and I'm still afraid of water, it's not because of what had happened over there, because that event is over. I survived, I'm over it, but if I'm still afraid of water, then it's here. It's because I created that meaning. And if I created that meaning, I can change that meaning. And you just have to get over it. And it's so sad, at the same time rewarding, when we take somebody that's had 50 years of a phobia or a belief and something, and then we change it. They're going, oh my God, what could I have done over this last 50 years if I wouldn't have believed this? Because it's like a domino. If you're afraid of water, I'm not going to the beach. If I'm not going to the beach, I'm not going to be there 4th of July. 4th of July, I'm not going to meet that cute girl that was over there. And then our eyes met, and we fell in love, and then we never had kids, and I never got this, and then I never, it just, what if?
Cascade.
So big believer of living life to your fullest. And I want to die all beaten and used up. And it's like, I like Goggins too. David Goggins is like, when he talks about, he said, when we think we're done, we're only 40% there, and our minds won't let us go to that other thing. So who's ever listening, there's a whole wonderful world out there that you've been told that you can't achieve. You can. It starts with the mind, but then you got to take care of the brain, and you put the two together, and you are absolutely unstoppable.
Marvelous. Well, we're running out of time for this fantastic episode. I'd like to ask you, there's a beautiful banner hanging from your office that talks about an award that you received. Can you tell us what that is on your office, that banner award that you received?
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive to see when you drive up there.
Well, our clinic was voted the best chiropractic and integrative medicine clinic in Orange County. That's in California. And it was for, by the LA Tribune, big media company out, all over, but they're housed in Southern California. And they had looked at some reviews and some clinical stuff, and unbeknownst to me, that they had went online and hunted down some people that had given those reviews, and they did a little investigative reporting stuff on me, and I didn't know about. But yeah, they went back over, and they deemed us the best over there. So I'm very grateful and humbled by that award. I don't do what I do for awards. I do them just because I got it. That's part of my hero's journey. But thanks for bringing that up. I appreciate that. I'm very proud of that.
Well, then, me too, and I'm honored to be able to see it and to be able to pop in there and work with you too. So I'd like to give you the last word before our outro, and then we'll pick it up again next time. Thank you so much for joining us, and let us walk out with your final words on personal development and the brain and the mind.
So the first thing I want to just talk about is that we haven't even tapped into the potential of the mind or the potential of the brain. Look to take care of your brain and your mind. We've all known people with maybe relatives or something with some cognitive issues, maybe Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, which is really coming up. And take care of yourself. And don't let your dreams die. If you're really committed to something, there's help out there. There's resources. You can come to me, you can not come to me, but there's other practitioners that can help you do that. And don't give up on yourself. There's things out there all the time. Technology and the things that we know nowadays, they're unbelievable. Access through your normal insurance model and stuff, you're not going to find it there, but they are out there. Keep looking. Contact, Mike. You can contact my office. We can point you in the right direction. Be glad to help. But don't give up.